Professor Rhiannon, you have some questions?
Yes, thank you. Had some questions for Austrade. I noted that in 2017, the Australia-Ecuador Business Summit was held in Quito to promote Australia's expertise and capacity to support Ecuador's growing mining sector. And what I've also become aware of is that in Ecuador, mining is quite challenging because it's widely regarded as the most biodiverse country in the world. So what I wanted to check in with you is how Austrade is working in Ecuador. Is Austrade aware that Australian companies owning mining concessions in protected forest reserves and Indigenous territories, are they aware that Australian-owned mining companies have mining concessions in these protected forest reserves and Indigenous territories?
Senator, subject to any observations that my colleagues would like to make, you'll forgive us, but that's a very specific question, and we'd be very happy to provide whatever information we can on notice, but I don't believe we'll have the capacity to answer.
Nobody's here to answer it. That's very sad.
Ecuador is one of a very great many number of countries in which Australian businesses are active. I doubt we will have someone today that has the detail on those matters here.
Well, I'll try and ask some of the questions in a general way because this is happening right now, and that's why I've been lobbied about it. Does Austrade support mining activities in areas earmarked for biodiversity and watershed conservation, and actually in areas where ranching and agriculture have actually been prohibited for decades? So that's why it would seem contradiction that then mining's allowed to come in. Do you have a position on that?
Senator, a general position for Austrade would be that we would seek to connect Australian businesses with opportunities elsewhere in the world. Consistent, our understanding would, of course, be then that those Australian companies would be required to operate consistent with the laws of the country in which they're operating, and indeed with any other international arrangements that were in place. It's not fundamentally our role to enforce the laws of another country, of course.
But isn't this an ongoing controversy? Like, it sounds good when we're sitting here a long way away, we obey the laws of the country. But when the laws of the country can readily change, and there is an implication here for Australian money, public money, that's been used in the past through the old AusAid organisation, where it actually played a role in contributing to these protected areas. So we've had a government agency working in Ecuador, actually with a non-government organisation from Australia, it's also international, called Rainforest Information Centre, where they helped set up one of these areas. And now I'm talking about it, I'll ask you to take this on notice. It was actually the Los Cedros Biological Reserve. So it's been set up previously with public assistance from this country. And then there's been changes of government, and there's been corruption, allegations of corruption in the country. So doesn't Austrade have some measures in place so you don't just say, oh, we rely on the laws of the country, because the laws might have changed when it's more easier for corrupt activities to occur and Australian companies could get caught up in something that will be detrimental to the people in that country and to the standing of Australia. Do you have something to handle that?
In the same way as Dr. Fay referred to earlier in terms of another part of our business, which is the landing pads operation.
Sorry, which is what?
The landing pads program. In the same way as in that case, we provide advice to companies interested in exploring opportunities in other countries about the laws of the country there and the regulations that apply. We would also, as part of the general services we provide, draw those matters to businesses' attention. But our role is one of facilitation and linking and informing. It's not one of ensuring or policing the activities that occur in another country. It's beyond our remit, Senator.
So I'm certainly not asking about policing of activities, but you're opening up possibilities for Australian companies, is a fair summary, isn't it, of Austrade in going into other countries?
Well, particularly opportunities to export from Australia into those countries.
But as well as export, like this Australian-Ecuador Business Summit held in Kyoto,
Yes.
a lot of people there, and it was specifically about supporting Ecuador's growing mining sector. So that seems as though that's a part of your work as well?
Yes.
Yes. So again...
I believe so, but I did say at the outset, in relation to the specific example that you gave, we would need to take on notice precisely what our involvement was in that particular event.
You know, some idea of how long you need, we could perhaps extend or have a break and come back.
Okay, I'll just I'll ask this question, then I'll put the rest on notice. Thank you. This is again, maybe you want to take it on notice, but it goes beyond Ecuador. Is that there's been incidences with these mining companies where, because many of the local people are opposed to it, there's been some mining camps that have been burnt down. So there's quite serious implications for the workers that the mining company brings in. Are those things that you give advice on? Like, are you tracking these mining companies? So maybe in the first instance, you think that it's gone into this country and is a good way to do business. But then events may change. Local people might be taking action. Lives may be under risk. Are you giving advice to that level, like particularly with these summits that you hold, or ongoing advice that you might provide?
Senator, in a general sense, as I said before, we certainly provide advice to companies about the regulatory environment and the business environment for the market that they are seeking to enter into. So in broad terms, the answer to your question is yes, we provide advice to companies about what they can expect to find when they enter into that market. We also have arrangements in place where we provide services to businesses. We have a range of checks that we put in place around, is this a company that we want to do business with? And we can go into some more detail on notice if you'd like around that, and we keep a watching brief on that. So if it turns out that there's a company that, for whatever reason, at the outset appears to have satisfied all our checks, but subsequently further information comes to light, it could easily be a situation where Austrade might then withdraw its services from that company.
Thank you. So if you could take that on notice of providing the additional information, and take on notice those earlier questions you were unable to answer.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.